Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Between Realities VR podcast here on the home of all things Between Realities on YouTube. Also available on your favorite audio podcast platform. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alex VR. I am one of the hosts of this magnificent program, and I am joined here, as always, by my co-host, Skiva. Dude, how's it going?
What's up, man? You nailed that title again.
I'm feeling good.
Job.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're going to stop... We're gonna stop recognizing it from here on out.
Sure.
This is the last time.
Okay, fine.
Fine. I felt good about it. Thank you for giving it to me. We're gonna expect it at this point.
Right on.
Moving on from here, we're expecting it. Season 4, we've made the switch.
Well, what a time in VR, right? I mean, this month has been bananas, but this week just takes the cake. So
I have to say though, man, I feel I miss you. Like a lot of times these weeks they fly by and it's like, whoa, it's Friday already, but I felt like this week was a long one, you know, and I didn't have a chance to talk with you much about any of the stuff that's been happening, and it's it's good to be here. I'm glad that we're doing it.
Awesome. Let's talk about it today.
Yeah. And we're not going to do it alone.
Yes, this is true. We got some peeps.
We've got some peeps, as we always do. One of I think maybe my favorite aspect of this show is the opportunity to connect intimately with so many people who share our passion, who share our vision, who understand that virtual reality is truly amazing. And today's guests, I would say, are no exception to that. The Virginia Philosophy Reality Lab is an interdisciplinary coalition of educators and researchers at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And joining us today from the Virginia Philosophy Reality Lab is Dr. Andrew Kissel and John Shull. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.
What's up, guys?
Hey, how's it going, y'all?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having us.
Dude, this is great. We've known each other, right, for quite a little while now. And now here we are meeting, and it's so awesome. You guys have been a supporter of our show for quite a while, and it means the world to us.
It really does.
These guys were behind our Quest 2 giveaways.
2 of them. Yeah, two
helped us
Quest
really
2
push
giveaways.
this channel forward and got VR into the hands of people. And Skiva did this whole thing with the biodata theft unit hashtag, and they were 100% behind it. And it was just so awesome. So thank you guys so much for your support of this show and the VR community. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
Awesome.
man. This stuff's easy, man. You guys are doing it's awesome. Hey, always down to get behind good people, man.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yep. So as Skiva was mentioning, it's been a pretty crazy week. It's been a crazy month, if we're going to be real about it.
Yeah, for sure.
In the world of VR.
For sure.
Yesterday was Facebook Connect, if we can call it that, which I
guess
we can't.
And I guess we should say that we are not live right now.
Yes.
For people watching.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we were watching Carmack talk all the way up. We were on our phones right before we got onto this call, watching his thing. So Carmack, I think, is still talking right now in the real world, but today is yesterday for you guys. And we just watched the Facebook Connect, Meta Connect. Right, Facebook has now changed.
That was interesting.
The company name to Meta. I think the Connect is probably a good place to start, don't you?
It is, yeah. So yeah, Facebook is now called Meta, which is interesting, right? I mean, there's a few reasons here and a few reasons they gave, and they are really pushing forward to become a metaverse company and not just be known for things like a social media website, because this is the future. Zuck knows that. Everyone at Facebook knows that. We are heading towards an all digital virtual reality and augmented reality future. And it's an exciting one. And, for me, this is a little bit like the birth of IOI from Ready Player One, right? I mean, let's be real. These guys definitely have a little bit of an agenda behind them, right? They want to record everything we do in these worlds. All of that. But it's interesting. It's interesting that these guys are pouring $10 billion, I think, a year, right?
That's what they
into
said
this.
that they did this year.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so interesting stuff.
Yeah, John, maybe you can kind of kick us off here a little bit. What did you have any feelings? Kind of, I know you said you were kind of catching up on some of the headlines.
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah. A couple of us at work were watching it live. Just we kind of had that privilege going in, and so we were watching it. And it was just very interesting. We being in the community, you kind of know what's kind of coming. We didn't know what the name was going to be, but enough people were like, yeah, these guys are going to change their name. For me, it was interesting to listen to them really more or less talk about where they see things going. So I think it was a slightly different from previous ones. Generally, there was always like a hardware announcement, and they did talk about this new hardware. But it was interesting. It was more or less them kind of trying to have this kind of conversation. And I will say it felt a little weird. And I don't know if that's just my own bias against Facebook.
I don't think so.
If it's just, I have very strong opinions about that. Hence the entire like Quest giveaways, right? Like a lot of this stuff, it's all connected. And it's really, from my perspective, it's really interesting, right? Like I got the headset thinking that, hey, I need to keep up with it as a developer. It's for my job. But I bought it and then realized, wait a second, this thing's like hooked at the hip with my Facebook account, and I want this separation. And so it was interesting to find out that they didn't talk about that in the live presentation, but in interviews and some of the other content that's dropped, they've mentioned that now they're gonna pull that back a little bit, and they're gonna have like different authentication services and separation of companies and logins. So I think they heard that, but it's still, we all know it's still all connected, right?
Well,
I mean,
and it is all connected, right? And it's going to be, I think. I mean, I am not behind the scenes at Facebook, but I can't imagine a time where they won't have your Facebook account tied to your Meta account, and then you'll be logging in with your Meta account. Their only concern is being able to know it's you and then put your data behind you. Right. And then learn about every individual citizen and what they do and what their likes are and so they can, give us some advertising. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely, I feel like a little kind of a play on words, or a way to maybe kind of steer away from some of the bad publicity that they are getting for requiring something like a Facebook account and forcing kids to get into social media before they're ready, and things like that. So it's interesting to think about these things and how they are going to kind of push forward. And I don't know. It's all interesting, and the name Meta is also interesting.
Yeah. What do you think, Andrew?
Well, I was going to say, totally informal poll. I'm, teaching a bunch of 18 to 23-year-olds right now, and I've used Facebook mostly as a professional tool for advertising philosophy events and things like that. And all my students are saying, we're not on Facebook anymore. And that was then translating to their VR interest. They're like, yeah, VR seems really cool, but I'm going to get the one that goes with my PlayStation rather than the one that Facebook puts out. So I can see them finding it appealing, the name change, but I'll be interested to see how much of that leftover Facebook residue is going to be there for the college scene students that I'm interacting with day in, day out like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's definitely their target, right? Like, again, they're we're seeing some of this information comes out from some of these, internal sources, and then they know that they are behind. They know that they're losing, and they're going to lose in the long run. And so they've known for a while, clearly. And so it makes a lot of sense to make a big pivot. And not only, from our community, we know this is where it's going, right? I think if you've been in VR for a couple of years now, or any of these things, whether you're a developer, whether you're a user, whether like you guys, that this is where it's going. Everything's going to come together: internet, data, personal space, virtual space, all this stuff. It's all coming together, and it's going to create a very interesting, I don't know, shitstorm to say, right, in one end, and I think you get into the heart of what really I think what he was really trying to get at. But it has this baggage, right? Like I kind of just took back. I wasn't expecting what they said today, but at the same time I'm like, yeah, but your guys' business model, it's ripe for, like, let's just look what's going on right now in the media. That's the stuff that scares the hell out of me, because you think the personal invasion is one thing on your phones, which is pretty evasive. Mm-hmm. You all know what's happening with these things, man. It's only going to get more. Yeah,
man. It's interesting timing for all this, right? Because we have whistleblowers coming out. We have people saying, I've seen the data. I've seen what they can and can't do. And they do not care. They are purposely leaning towards the more profitable options. And there's no one to regulate that. There's no one to fight for the people, right? It's all about a company that is allowed to hide their findings and do their own studies and interpret them the way they want without any third-party regulation.
And John, he makes a point that I honestly have not really thought of yet, and it's the fact that Facebook is losing. Like we're always thinking about Facebook as this leader, like this they own everything, like they are the biggest company in the fucking universe. But at the end of the day, TikTok is like annihilating them, and people would rather use Instagram, and like all these other platforms are definitely becoming way more popular, especially amongst young people. And Facebook is now kind of becoming known as like boomer paradise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, all these kids don't want to go in there with their parents on there and their grandparents on there. No one wants to be in there.
So like, let's look at MySpace, right? Like MySpace was like the initial social media that got everyone hooked. And then once people figured out that Facebook was way cooler, MySpace is stuck there and they have to pivot. And they're like, shit, what are we going to do? Well, people kind of use our platform for music. So they leaned into the music thing, and what happened? It fucking failed.
They fell off the cliff.
And it's a great segue for a lot of like philosophical concepts, right? Like think about this, right? How are they going to take all of this information? They're just going to use the old model, man. We all know it. Like they're not just going to magically be, oh, we're this great. No. You guys have got a hardened model. You know how to get at people. You know what people are interested in. You know way more information and all these connections across massive networks. And they're just going to get deeper at a level to where it's very scary. And I always like I always get a little like sidetracked on this stuff because I love talking about it, but it could be a deep, dark hole of like, and people have a hard time now comprehending what type of information you can connect just with a phone. There's always the memes about like, people fighting for like freedoms of this. And then they're like, well, hey, do you have your phone in your pocket? Well, hey, I mean, come on.
Right.
Like,
that's like
whatever
everyone's
you're
go-to.
saying is contradicting by you having a phone. So unless you're off in the hills somewhere and you've got your tin hat on,
Or in a philosophy classroom where your professor makes you turn your phone off.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So like you talk about like eye track, like people don't even understand like the research behind eye tracking and the amount of data and insight you can get.
Oh my God,
is insane.
Truly. They will register shit that you're doing at a subconscious level
that you didn't even know.
Will know more about you than you know.
Do. That's correct.
That's right. That's right. And you see it now with the way even targeted ads are being targeted to your friends, your peers, your significant others, right? So if my wife is looking at something of interest, all of a sudden I'm getting ads, and I'm like, what the hell is this shit? And I know how this stuff works. So I'm like, why the hell am I getting this? And I'm like, hey, what have you been up to? She's like, oh, I've been Googling all types. I'm like, that's why. So like, and people don't even understand like that piece, and it's just going to get at a very deeper level. And you get into like, I think what, Alex, as you're saying, there's a subconscious here that we don't even know, right? And
your eye flicks and looks at something like you didn't register that, but they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like, you in modeling and sim, there's this term called black box. You don't know what's going on inside. You put some stuff in, you get some stuff out. Right, in this black box, and you have a concept called white box. It's almost like they kind of have a black box, right? But they know, like to them, it's a white box. To us and everybody else, it's this black box. We don't know what's going on inside, but they know, and they can play it off as much as they. And I say they because it's not just Meta or Facebook. I don't know what to call them anymore.
Right.
It's general privacy invasion. It's at some level. And as these sensors and things, they get closer to us. That's all the progression of tech is closer to us. The closer it gets to us, the deeper it gets, right? Subconsciously, all that stuff. And so that's what worries me is I don't think people are ready, personally.
I'll jump in real fast to go a little bit doomer and gloomer before maybe trying to be a little bit more optimistic about it. I teach philosophy at Old Dominion. I get to interact with kids as young as 16 in my classes regularly. And I ask them, what social media are you on right now? And they say resoundingly no to Facebook. But then I ask, so where are you? And one student just the other day said, whatever you teachers are on, we're not on that one. Right? So it's like, oh, well, that helps me know that I'm never going to bump into you. But one of the concerns that we talk about, Old Dominion has a very large racial minority population for a university, and the algorithms that are being used are designed by a bunch of older white male engineers, and they're not thinking about like me and John, right? And they're not thinking about the way that these algorithms are going to perpetuate systems of injustice for the racial minorities that are using them. So in addition to these sort of privacy worries, it's this worry that people are going to get funneled towards, further racist systems unbeknownst to them. So that's the further doom and gloom that I'm worried about as well with regards to these privacy issues. But again, in talking to my students, they're kind of like, this is news that we've known all along. And perhaps, John, you're right that they don't understand the great depth towards which you can basically reconstruct a person based off of their metadata. But they're saying we've been monitored, we've been stereotyped for years, but social media is allowing us to connect with people who think and look and live like us for the first time. And that's a voice that these platforms are giving us that we're not getting anywhere else. And so I've heard students actually say, I understand that privacy is a concern, but it's a risk that I'm willing to take for the great goods that I'm getting with. And so they're pointing things like Black Lives Matter movements that can occur in a world that's socially networked in the way that never could have happened in the past. And that's giving voice to people that previously didn't have voices. And so whenever we go down the doom and gloom, privacy thing, I'm always like, I want to keep that perspective in mind as well, because it's very easy for me to start putting on my tinfoil hat. In fact, that's one of my other Discord images is we are now wearing a tinfoil hat. So,
well, I love to play devil's advocate on this one, because, and I usually do when Skeef and I get into this, because I personally feel like your freedoms, your privacy, all the things that you want, that you're used to having, are not as important as what's best for everyone. And we are constantly asking for all of our shit to be faster, easier, more accessible, this, that, and the other thing. But then we bitch when they give it to us and like, oh yeah, but we need to know where you are so we can navigate you to where you're trying to go. And like, what, you want to know my location? Like, yeah, you asked for it, and we are going to continue to participate in everything. Every single fucking thing that comes out, we're participating in it. It could not be any other way. As a baby, my mom boots up the computer. I hear the beeps and boops, and I'm like instinctively, as a human, crawling towards that shit. Like we have this like deep ingrained like drive to connect with this digital shit, and it is not stopping. There's nothing that is going to stop what's happening.
But what we can do is demand that they treat our data better, that they put more security measures in place to not leak our data and have these massive breaches where all of this stuff gets out and is then for sale for $5 on the black market. I mean, that's a little ridiculous. Plus, what's going to happen is Zuck is eventually going to get old and die. Right? Or he's going to retire, and some jackass is going to come in with completely different motives, or could come in with completely different, right? And then all of a sudden has access to this entire vat of the entire world's information, where they've been, how long they've been there, what they're looking at, what their preferences are, what they buy, what they don't.
So let me get meta, no pun intended, for a second here. Like, if you have been down the rabbit hole, you might resonate with something that you might resonate with the term of the illusion of self. Okay, we are constantly like we view reality as like from this this subjective perspective through my own eyes, right? But let's just hypothetically say that we are all one. Right? Like, let's say that we're not a bunch of individuals who all have our own private goals and desires, and then we're actually one consciousness that split ourselves up into a billion versions of ourselves, so we have conversations and there's drama and there's something fun to do. If that is the way reality actually is, then your privacy, as we continue to plunge forward into all this shit, is like kind of nil. You know what I mean?
True. But not everyone is awakened to that yet, especially these executives. And you can't have one little tiny piece of that consciousness dominating over all of the rest of the pieces of consciousness. You can't. Right. You can't do that until everyone is equally like, oh, I get it.
Right. But I just see this as an inevitability. Like I see it as down the road towards that.
Sure.
What do you guys think?
Well, I think you highlighted that. I like to say in engineering ethics generally, you want the ethical problems to be forward-looking, anticipating before the problems arise, rather than backwards-looking. And unfortunately, that goes against a lot of our design philosophies, where it's like, let's run the toy, see how it breaks, then go back and fix it. But when you're talking about ethics, like people's lives and livelihoods and well-being are at stake. So unfortunately, that sort of collect the data and then fix the broken pieces is not an option. So the kinds of conversations that we're having right now that are looking forward to anticipate these kinds of problems are the ones we need to be having, so that we hope the person that replaces Zuck is going to have thought about that and had enough people like us concerned about it that it's on their radar as they're making these design decisions.
Yeah, and it brings up a great point. So up until very recently, right? So in my own graduate study classwork, I never was required to take too many, most of my classes were all engineering, computer science, computer engineering. I had the fortunate to take a really interesting class that OD offers. It was basically gender and technology, right? So I come in just, white kid, privileged, Northern Virginia, right? And I've learned to work through that, right? By significant other really helping out a lot, and get in this class and realize that kind of have my mind blown, right? And I'm like, why the hell is this not being required? Like, this should be just as fundamental as, I don't know, freaking Calc 1 or differential equations to an engineer. This should be right in there. And don't get me wrong, I had my like one or two, ethics, and we're going to learn about the Challenger disaster, and we're going to learn about how we're going to get better at that, right? And that's just this kind of tropes that I think these schools are doing it. And man, it really put a completely different spin on just from the design side, like how I would approach a problem, that I feel like everybody should be going through that. And I want to highlight what you're saying, Dr. Kissel, because right now it's really interesting. I was following the trends on what's the most recent zombie VR game? Is it The Walking Dead? Everybody's playing right now? Or am I behind?
Dead by Dead. No,
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil. Okay, so Resident Evil, right? You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. People are doing the boob grab, right, to grab their knife. So why? Why did that happen? We all know why it happened, because a bunch of people designed it around, I don't know, maybe my body frame, right? And they didn't think about how are we going to adjust this for other individuals. Now, if they had gone or had a little bit of a more, I don't know, maybe training, or it had been exposed, so some of these other classes that, like what Dr. Kissel teaches in a lot of the humanities, the philosophy side, that would have never happened. Right out of the gate. It's not about, we had the wrong testers. No. It's the design. When they sat down and designed this system of inventory, it never crossed the room because they had never been in that situation. And they're never exposed to that, and they never had a chance to talk about that or be put in that position, right? Because unfortunately, it's usually a lot of people look like me, as a privileged person. Oh yeah, that's fine for me, right? It's good. And then you find out later, and it's kind of turned into like a weird VR community joke. I think it's cool people are talking about it, but like, it's wrong.
Wait, so there's I want to make sure I understand this. There is a problem with grabbing your knife from your chest. Am I understanding that right?
Well, because females have an issue because their chest extends.
So they try to get
and
the
they really
knife
got to get in there into
because their boobs in the way.
Their physical body, and it's also for larger chested people too, right? Whether guy, girl, doesn't matter. Right. It's that it was designed around a location on a body. And this idea about a body, there is no generic body.
Right.
You can, and there's tons of money. The military spent buku dollars back in the day trying to design cockpits and NASA shuttle stuff about ergonomics and all this stuff. And knowing that's good from an engineering standpoint, but what you learn is that you can't really do for all.
Right.
You try. And what you find out is in this space, in VR, guess what we have the privilege of? It's virtual. Right, give an option, right? But again, I don't think it ever came up. I don't think it was ever something. But it just goes back to it was a design problem.
Well, I think it did come up, and I'll tell you why. Because they do have another weapon system where you can either use that inventory, or you can hold a button. You can switch in the options. You can hold a button and select your weapon via a thumbstick movement.
It's less immersive, but it does solve that problem.
It does, and then you're not grabbing your boob, but the way that people want to play it is the immersive way, where you get to put your gun on your hip, you get to grab the knife, grab the grenade, reach over your shoulder for your shotgun, right? The other way just isn't as fun.
Well, maybe not, but
yeah.
And it's a compromise, right? And I think that gets at the heart of some of these things, right? And what I find very interesting, again, in these companies from an operating standpoint, generally they address that later. And Facebook, Meta, Oculus is a very good example. They showed today, and so they've had products out for years, finally some interesting hand tool kits. So from a developer standpoint, man, there's like a whole bunch of tools out there. You can make your own, you can write your own, you can get some here. Microsoft's done a really interesting work on their toolkit, MRTK. And so, but it's always been kind of cumbersome. And if you think about it, like, I shouldn't have to think about a keyboard or a mouse, right? And I'm doing something for Windows. The hell, like, So it's now they have this, oh yeah, we're gonna better hand. And again, this gets back after like accessibility features that aren't built in. And even in our own project, we had to figure out like how are we going to account for like voice. And generally with like Android development or iOS development, you don't have to. It's there. It's in the library. You just say, hey, I'm gonna access the Siri library. I'm gonna access the whatever, Google's Assistant, and it's there. But with Oculus, up until I think this year, they didn't have a lot of that stuff built in. So it's just interesting. Like even the damn leader is behind. So it doesn't surprise me that there are other teams and studios are running into the same issues. I don't think I don't want to point fingers at people. I think it's a bigger problem, and I think it's a design problem, which goes back to not having the I don't know, good balance of people in there looking at these things.
Yeah. Well, there are I think it's more of a balance too of the people, the design, and the cost. Right, because they're doing all this for like $300. Now, on the other side, we have Ultra Leap hand tracking, which can do occlusion. It's very fast in responding, but it adds hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
Right. So there are technologies, but they don't fit into the price point that's needed. The Oculus, the Oculus hand tracking definitely has a ways to go. Right,
dude. And I gotta say, hearing Carmack talk today about some of the like behind the curtain stuff at Facebook, like, it's so refreshing, man. Like, it's so great to hear someone communicating authentically about their approach to stuff and how he's talking about like sourcing stuff for headsets. He's like, like, it really helps to get a couple of them, and this is why, and like he's explaining all that stuff, and it's like, okay, like, thank you for the perspective. Like, we would probably like you more if you were a little bit more authentic and like came, we were more forward about your intentions with all of your decision making. Facebook. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention before we get onto a new news topic, because apparently we're not avoiding going down the rabbit hole on any topic at this point. But Meta, right? I want to talk about this name change a little bit. I think that they are hijacking the term the metaverse. They're stealing it.
Of course.
They're taking it for themselves. And for so long, we've been using this word metaverse as this idea of this like open, shareable, amazing paradise where we can all go and spend time together, and it's free, and you can take the sword that you bought in game A into game B, and it's not a closed ecosystem, and it's all open. It's fucking beautiful. That's the way we've been viewing the word metaverse. Well, Facebook looks at that word, and then they go into Webster's, and they're like, dude, nobody owns this word. Like, we can own this word. So let's change our name to Meta. And then when we launch our program, we call it the Metaverse. Boom. There it is. And it's not open. It's fucking closed. And everything that's in there is all in their little bubble. And it's not going to be this amazing free utopia like we imagine, but it's still going to be called the Metaverse. And they're going to own the fucking name. They're going to now own it.
Imagine if one company had the foresight to see how big the internet was going to be. They would have done the same thing.
Well, that's exactly what Facebook is doing, I think.
They are. That's damn straight what they're doing. They are taking this, and they're gonna attempt to own it, and they want to be the name that is associated with this thing that is going to be where we all kind of live.
Yeah, there's Meta, and they have the Metaverse.
Yep.
And that's fucking horseshit.
I agree.
It gets into ownership stuff too, though, right? Like what does it mean? Like, so, there's laws, right? I can't just go across the street and like start spray painting my neighbor's yard. Okay, so in the metaverse, hypothetically, who's governing that, right? Meta's going to govern that? They're having a hard time right now, man.
It's going to be a bunch of programs. It's going to be a bunch of partnered creators who make programs that all
it's like the internet.
Participate.
You can't have one company that has a giant network and all the websites go to them and say, I want to put my thing on your thing, right?
I think that's what they're trying to do.
I know that's what they're trying to do, but we have to stop that.
What I mean? That's what I got was interesting, is that they did talk about that, and they were open about that, and I'm curious to see. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to start talking about. Like, he mentioned interoperability. I bring that term up again. He mentioned that a lot because it gets after standards, right? And I hope that there's going to be a larger community that's not just them. Now, they might be able to steer the ship because, hey, they're $10 million a year burning money. But man, like, you look at like I try to put things from the development perspective, just my backbone. You look at OpenXR as a standard, and so that took a couple years, and that's just from a kind of hardware, firmware development standpoint. So then I can build a thing, and hey, if I'm supporting OpenXR, boom, I'm good. It's gonna work on this headset, this platform. It's wonderful. So be curious to see like how that kind of goes. And I know there's a lot of work on the academic community. There's a IEEE group, I forgot what they're called, and they're kind of helping with a lot of that stuff that deals with the standards there. And so they finally got a version 1 this year of OpenXR. So I'd be curious what is the equivalent, right, of the OpenXR for the metaverse, and how are they going to do that, right? Like if it is the new internet, which I think we all would agree it is going to be, because again, we're going to put the old in the new in the old, right? So, that's what it's going to be. How it can't just be them. And then how are you going to have Apple? How are you going to have Google? Like all these big,
it's all going to be a lie, dude. It's all going to be a fucking lie. They're going to be selling the metaverse. They're going to be selling it as what we all view it as, but it won't be that at all.
Right.
It's going to be a closed fucking thing.
Luckily, not enough people even know what the metaverse is, so there's still time to coin a new phrase that everyone thinks about this whole thing in.
And that's the other thing that's pissing me off now when I'm thinking about their fucking presentation today, is because they completely hijacked Oculus Connect. Oculus Connect used to be an event for VR enthusiasts and developers to come together. Correct. That is what the event was. Period. Now it's apparently a press conference to inform the uneducated public about what the metaverse is and what VR technology is. It's like they made this presentation for people who already know that shit. Who's watching Oculus Connect that's not a VR enthusiast?
Well, it's not Oculus Connect
23,000 live, I think, and I'm going, okay, 23,000 live. There's your hardcore community right now, right?
But so that there's your numbers is for everyone else. That's for the people who are going to Walmart who are trying to figure out what to buy for Christmas. Like those are the people who need to see that video, not us, not the Connect crowd. So they have like completely hijacked that whole thing, and they've made a whole new program out of it. It's not what it used to be at all anymore.
I think they're seeing that VR and the metaverse go together, and AR, and it's all one big lump sum thing, right? Yep.
Which is why they're going to get rid of the Oculus name, dude.
Yeah, Oculus is going away in 2022. There will be no more Oculus, which is super sad. It's an end of an era. It's really too bad. I mean, it's just a name.
It's ultimately a good ass name.
It is. And here's the thing. I've said this a bunch of times today on Twitter and live chats, but companies spend their entire careers or their entire company lives trying to raise brand awareness, right? Oculus almost had it. Facebook almost had Oculus to where people knew Oculus was VR. Like to a lot of people, VR is Oculus. Oh, I'm going to put the Oculus on. I'm going to use the Oculus. Like they were this close. And now they're like, oh, just kidding. We're just going to throw all that away now.
I know. NBA Finals, Oculus logos on the fucking court, which blew my mind. And then they invite all of these Oculus ambassadors to their shit with like a month ago. You're telling me you didn't know you were killing the Oculus brand a month ago? But like, what did you have all these hoodies laying around? And you're like, oh, how are we going to get rid of all these hoodies with the Oculus logo on it?
Well, it's funny because when
to a bunch of YouTubers.
when this headset was leaked, which is the Meta Cambria, the Cambria, right? When this headset was leaked, everyone was like, why is there no Oculus logos on this thing? Well, now we know it's because they're going to be Meta logos on this thing. Right. So
God, that name sucks.
I do think they wanted to now. I think they wanted to launch that. Like I got a ongoing thing right now with a buddy of mine. We're kind of betting beforehand, like, hey, are they gonna launch it or not? Are they just gonna talk? We knew they were gonna talk about it because, like you said, it leaked, right?
Yeah.
And when they said everything 2022, I actually do think that is probably because of manufacturing right now.
Yeah.
Just my own experiences personally trying to buy hardware through the university, through state vendors. It is atrociously hard right now. Yeah. It's just really bad. So I'm going to guess that they had an intention to probably be able to at least start pre-orders, because I haven't seen, a lot of the content that leaked, right? I didn't see it. Did you guys see any of that in any of the announcement stuff?
They didn't show any of it. No, they might be pumping the brakes on it.
Yeah, I think they are. And I think a lot of it has to do with, like you said, it's really hard right now to get stuff, to get parts, to get all the things they need to make this happen. So it's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know what their intention was, but it's crazy because it's all in the firmware too, right? There's all these videos with the using the headsets and showing people how to all the little tutorial videos and all this stuff. It's all in there right now. There are skins that were pulled out for the in-game use of the controllers and the headsets when they're, so when you're looking at your controllers in VR, you see what the controllers look like. Those are all textured and, they, and so all that stuff was extracted. That stuff is all in there and it's ready to go.
How about like the case that she carried in the Kinect?
I'm going with that's like the Pulp Fiction case, and it's all of our souls in that box.
Yeah.
Wait, isn't the actual Pulp Fiction case just like a plain light bulb prompt that they left there? There was nothing in it at all. I like that interpretation better.
Well, it would have been cool if they just opened the box a little bit in the video presentation.
Yeah.
But they make a point of like making you aware of it, and then did absolutely nothing. Like, is that what I think it is? And she's like, oh fuck yeah, it is. And then they don't look at it again, and we don't get to see it.
Yeah.
That was messed up.
It was messed up.
That was messed
up.
up.
But I think, I don't know, wasn't it supposed to be that headset that was in there? Because they did pull out that headset.
Why?
There's a giant box with that little tiny headset.
There's nothing in that box.
It was all weird.
It might as well have been empty.
Yeah, I think on whatever planet Zuckerberg's from, this was all proper marketing for his species. So
yeah, for his species. Well,
again, they definitely had some, there was some serious, strategery at play as they were, as he's walking through, their really, really nice office, right? There was intentionality there behind certain things in the background. You go back and you watch everything you saw, intention, every single thing.
Here's the most intentional thing in the video. All right. Now, you guys, you might have missed this. Okay. You gotta have a keen eye to catch something of this level of detail, folks. But you can see here, if you're watching this video with us, this is a picture of Zuck from his presentation today. And there's some shit in the background, right? This is like cryptic. Like, you break out like the notepads and like whiteboards, folks, because we are about to uncover the mystery that is Meta and Facebook. So as you can see, in the background here, up on the bookshelf, top shelf. Can we get a zoom in here, Skiva?
I wasn't prepared for that.
Oh, what the? All right. Well, if Skiva cared about me, he would have had this set up. Oh, he's gonna do it. Right. Good. Just blow it up. Screw it. Just blow it up. Who cares?
Hold on.
On the shelf back there, you can see a bottle of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. Okay, and this is not an
original.
I think this is original. I think that's some original Sweet Baby Ray's right there. I mean, you have to ask Zuck. He's the true connoisseur. But that's some Sweet Baby Ray's. And
we're breaking the immersion here.
That's not an accident. Okay, no. This is this is like a nod or like an Easter egg to this video that Zuckerberg made when Facebook Live very first became a thing. He was like showing off the functionality of Facebook Live, and he goes live in his backyard. And well, Skiva, maybe you can roll the clip for us here.
Hope delicious. But hopefully for Canadian Thanksgiving, you get to eat a lot of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. That is going on the ribs.
Sweet Baby Ray's.
Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's is very good.
Sweet Baby Ray's.
Sweet Baby Ray's. We have just applied the Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Maybe throw some Sweet Baby Ray's on the ribs and take it from there. She's waiting for her ribs. I mean, she knows what's coming, and Sweet Baby Ray's.
There it is, folks. Some Sweet Baby Ray's. So this is some cryptic shit, okay? Because this video, I'm pretty sure is generated by an AI or something, and it's like supposed to be normal human behavior. And now we see the Sweet Baby Ray's making an appearance in the background of Oculus Connect, and I'm thinking that there's something here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that we need to uncover. There's a mystery behind this.
Yeah.
So
Bad taste. That's what the mystery is. Lay Sweet Baby Ray's down, but like there's a plenty of other better sauces out there.
Well, you know, I need someone to like dive into it, like write out all the letters. Like, is it an anagram? Sweet Baby Ray's all the way down the list. You know, like there's a mystery to be unfolded here, and we're gonna count on the Between Realities community to help us crack the case here, crack the code.
Yep.
So Sweet Baby Ray's, smoking ribs, smoking meats, the new quest. This is all connected somehow, and we're gonna get to the bottom of it.
It is.
Okay, let's get back on track. Oh, you're fixing the video.
Yeah, I gotta fix stuff because Discord for some reason is just
it's my fault for making you blow stuff up and get crazy with it.
All right, there we go.
We went 3 seasons without showing anybody our green screen.
I know.
And now on this season, it's like every episode.
I know. Seriously. I know.
I think you just said you like it when they give you a peek behind the curtain.
I
so
do.
You're giving people a peek behind the curtain.
I do. You know, if anything to make it feel more real, which obviously they didn't really spend a whole lot of attention to detail on their presentation for Facebook Connect today.
So we did talk a little bit about how hard it is to acquire some of this hardware, and maybe that's why there was problems with actually getting this headset out today or yesterday. Now that we're filming, right? But that's why we're not getting it. And we can't pre-order it. But we did get an announcement from another company just a few days ago that I was even more excited about, and I know a lot of people are very skeptical, including myself. But
totally.
But the hype level for me is really there. So Pimax. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. Pimax came out with a presentation announcing their new headset. And I just got to read to you some of the specs for this thing, because this thing is absolutely everything I think any VR enthusiast has ever wanted, right? This is called the Pimax 12K QLED headset. It's part of the Reality series of headsets that they're putting out, right? This thing starts at $2,400, right? So
it's just a headset, right?
Where's it end?
Right. So we don't know where this ends because there is a lot of modules, optional modules. But so this thing has inside-out tracking. It has optional Steam VR base station tracking compatible with 1.0 and 2.0 lighthouses, which you can get a separate cover for this thing to make it lighthouse trackable. It has full inside-out, full body tracking. It has facial expression tracking, lip tracking, eye tracking, 200 megahertz 12K QLED display, which is actually 2 stacked 6K displays, right? So you know how Pimax works with their math.
Dumb.
Yeah, they're a little weird like that, but either way, this is one of the best displays we've ever seen. Approximately 5484 by 3660 per eye. That's an estimated thing. We got 200-degree horizontal field of view with 135-degree vertical field of view. And just so you know, the Quest is about 100 degrees.
That's
right?
so insane.
So and full human resolution here is supposed to be the degrees that you're supposed to be able to see in is about 210. So this is really close to taking up your entire vision, all of your peripheral
For all
vision
intents
and
and
everything.
purposes, it will.
Right.
Like I feel pretty
Right.
comfortable in the Quest playing Population 1 running around looking all over, and that's like looking through a pair of binoculars compared to this.
For sure. I mean, this is absolutely insane. It's got Wi-Fi 6E, apparently. It's got a Qualcomm XR2 Snapdragon chipset that's going to drive all these cameras. It's going to make this headset able to do standalone gaming like the Oculus Quest does. Now, when you put it in standalone mode, apparently the field of view goes down to like 180 or 160 degree field of view. But either way, right, that's still pretty insane. It has hot swappable batteries, 6,000 milliamp hot swappable batteries that are in the back that are counterweighted.
Hot swappable being the key
Hot
here,
swappable.
meaning that you don't have to shut it off to change it. You just pop one off, put it back in, keep cruising.
Right, exactly. And now we've seen HTC attempted to do something like that before, but with the 5 Focus 3, but you still had to turn the headset off, which is not hot swap. That is not what hot swap means.
No.
That's HTC using terms they don't know what it means, right? But either way, so you got an automatic IPD adjustment from 57 to 72 millimeters that happens with the Tobii eye tracking. You don't have to adjust your thing. It puts those
really cool.
lens centers right in the middle of your eyes. It's got dual cooling fans. It has native PCVR via a fiber optic cable. It has, it's all going to have, I should say, with all this stuff, wireless 60 gig WiGig, 60 gigahertz WiGig adapter for wireless PCVR. It also has a 5G cellular model you can put on there to game mobily wirelessly from the cloud. Right?
Can they do this?
Nobody knows. This is what we're talking about, like with the whole thing with chip shortages and all this stuff. All of these parts are all kind of hard to get, right? Everyone is trying to get a lot of this stuff. They're not, this Pimax isn't the only game in town, obviously. If Oculus is having trouble securing some of these things, I don't know how Pimax is going to pull this off. I mean, this is absolute insanity.
Well,
now,
what I don't understand if they're going to pull off is just something that works as they claim it's going to.
Right, because they're also saying that there is zero
screen door.
Zero screen door, but also zero distortion around the edges. Now, with the 8KX, there was this weird thing on the outside of the display around your peripheral vision that looked all weird, right? And a lot of people couldn't get past that. But apparently, they're claiming zero distortion on this thing. So this is supposedly going to be, I mean, the headset from the heavens, right? I can't imagine in a million years anything else touching this for a very, very long time. This has everything. Literally everything. It even has a panel you can put on there with full color pass-through for mixed reality display. This
Pimax, is what has me excited about CES, bro.
Yeah, because this is going to be at CES apparently. So Kevin, the COO of Pimax, confirmed right to me as well that this will be there at that conference.
Right? It's not coming out till the end of 2022, right?
Right, Q4 of 2022 is the supposed release date for this thing. But
yeah, that's how they're getting around the manufacturing side. My guess is it's really about, for this thing, I'd be curious, it's just their power management system. That, like, they must have all types of various ways to reroute power for all the additional attachments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you have to be, like, from an electronics engineering standpoint, that in itself is a challenge. Did they mention the weight? I know you've got the counterbalance with the batteries. That's good, because I know this thing's always been a little front heavy, right?
Yeah. Now this is a lot thinner. The whole encasing is a lot smaller than it was in the previous headsets. So the weight is supposed to be down significantly from the 8KX.
But it's still going to be huge compared to everything else that's coming out at that time.
Right. And it does have a new lens system as well. It has what they call a Bionic lens system, which is kind of taking pancake lenses in the center and then Fresnel lenses on the sides and kind of meshing the two together. Yeah. Right. So it's all very interesting. It's all very voodoo. I really can't wait to see if there is, first of all, if the prototype is at CES and what parts that are available on here. Will full body tracking be working?
Right.
Will all of this, like how much of this stuff will actually be working and attached to the headset?
That's why we can't get excited for this yet. Because when I think about like getting hyped about headsets, I think about like every HTC headset that's ever come out, and HTC and the Reverb
since
G2.
Valve's involvement,
and and the Reverb G2. It's like the G2. Everyone's so stoked about the fucking specs of that thing, and then it comes out and like, oh, it doesn't track. And it fell completely flat. Like all the hype just off a cliff.
Yeah,
no one
it's still
uses
a beautiful headset, right? And HP actually just came out and said, we just revamped the hardware. We made the tracking better. We moved the cameras. We changed the cable on the thing so it has better support for AMD and AMD GPUs and CPUs. And they did all these things to improve the headset. But yeah, there were some issues. There might still be some issues. I haven't got to try the new one, right? But companies make claims that sometimes they can't fill, and a lot of these things are no fault of their own. They place these orders, stuff doesn't come in because there's chip shortages, there's issues. All the other companies are trying to secure these same parts. I don't know how they're going to pull this off, but when I look at this headset and if I imagine this thing being real, I want to like climb up on the ceiling and I get so freaking excited for this. I can't even tell you. This is the headset, and I would spend double on this thing. I would sell an arm. Well, maybe not an arm. I need that for tracking, right? But a kidney or something. Yeah. I
Trust me,
this headset.
Full body tracking won't work if you're missing body parts.
Right.
It's gonna track you. Oh wait, you're missing an arm. accessibility out the window, tracking now fails, your leg becomes your arm, like it'll be a disaster.
Oh man, but they even touched a little bit today in the Connect about like that whole like implied movement kind of scenario, and how like you have unused pathways in your brain, and it's like before long you will be moving, but you won't be, like you won't need the arm. You'll just think about your arm, and boom, there it is, working for you in virtual space. Like
PCI will eventually make that happen, right? But that's a ways off. The stuff that
but they're still talking
Facebook,
about it.
Yeah, and Facebook is using these things on their arms, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. So listen, that actually was probably, for me, from a tech standpoint, was the most interesting thing, because there's been a lot of companies in the last, not a lot, a handful of companies have been working on muscle signal processing, basically. And what they showed is very much of an advanced version of that. And what it tells you is this, right? So who's killing it right now? And the only reason I joined the dark side of Apple is because of their watch. Yeah. Right. And so that I was very, very like, oh, nice. Okay. Because from a human interaction standpoint, from an interface standpoint, it's more than just the watch. It's the band, and this becomes an input device. It becomes another sensor. You can also offload a lot of that. So if we know that you're going to have a headset, maybe it's got a bigger chipset in it, another sensor, another chipset, you start to offload this work, and all of a sudden you can do some pretty magical things. So he was doing the handwriting, right?
Dude,
if you guys caught that.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I had a crazy oh shit moment when I saw that, because the guy's just sitting, he's just sitting there, and his hand is just like twitching.
Yep.
But all this information and all this stuff is happening. It's like, holy shit. Like, that's some like Matrix kind of stuff. Like, you're just twitching your finger, but like cranking out your thoughts like really fast. That sounds so cool.
So that sensor was picking up on the motion. So it was actually kind of like you're writing in the same spot, right? So you're writing on top of words. And so as he's writing this word, it's basically picking up the motion, and then it's been trained a little bit, and then as it's used to you, it'll adapt to you. There's been some other companies, I can't think off the top of my head right now. There was an Israeli company that was doing typing, and they've been at all the trade shows where you put this thing on one hand and you just start going, and there's different interactions for different keys. And after you train yourself to their way, it's crazy. Like, you could just be walking down the street and just freaking tumbling and tapping in your pocket, and this thing's like great. That's
so crazy.
You get into the privacy thing. So that's the thing. And I've been telling some guys to work with, the watch is interesting because nobody, I hope I'd say it now, you guys fast forward a few years, I'll probably be wrong. If people are just walking around with their glasses on, yelling at them,
right?
Hopefully that doesn't become the thing, right? So you need a way to not air tap. Why? Because physically it's exhausting. So how are you gonna prompt a thing? You're gonna be doing this? Okay, I could see that short term. It's still tiring. This is tiring. Holding my arm up, doing this, clicking. You also, other people watching me, I'm doing something. You're like, what the hell are you doing, man? What are you doing? You doing? You recording me, right? But hey, if I got something on my wrist and I can kind of discreetly, a little gesture, hand in my pocket, I'm fake tight. Hey, I'm sending a message now, right? I'm sending you a text, Skiva, right? And nobody knows it, right? And so that's the thing. How do you get around these human interactions? Because people
I love where you're going with this, John. And I think that we are in an adolescence period where we are designing all of these new inputs, new ways of doing things, but we are locked in our primitive versions of our initial ways of doing it. So like the keyboard, for example, is a rendition of a fucking typewriter, where it's like, oh, this is how we can think you can use 8 fingers and your thumbs to do, instead of using this to write it all out. And we had to like rethink what it meant to organize a word because of the typewriter, and like, as you were talking about, you're writing on top of the letters. That's not how we write. That's not how letters flow into each other. An A needs to go into something else. So we actually need to relearn what it means to write if we're not going in a horizontal path anymore. So, but that's not going to work because we're trying to use an archaic method of input with a new idea of what it means to input information. And it's going to be awkward and weird until we have this like breakthrough moment.
Right? But that's McLuhan, right? That's what we do. We go, I need to get this input in. I'm just going to go, I'm going to do whatever I did on my phone now in my headset. So I'm going to be swiping, right? I'm swiping on my pair of glasses. Why the hell are we swiping the side of my face? Come on, guys.
I think it actually might be deeper than that, Alex. Like, I'm a little bit worried, said once we learn how to stop using this archaic way of writing. It's like, the problem is like writing is not just like the way that I communicate things. Like it's so deeply embedded in my cognitive architecture. It's how I think. Like the coolest example I heard about this recently was students struggling in computer science classes with the notion of like file folders on their computers of organizing their systems. And all these old guys were like, well, I used to pull my files out of a literal file folder. So when we transformed over to the computer, it made sense to organize them as a file folder. And he was like, I was noticing that my students weren't doing any of their work. And then they said they didn't understand how to find the stuff. I was like, what do you mean? It's under this folder and that folder and that folder. And they're like, look, I'm used to things, you know, like Instagram and stuff like that, where it's like you put in a search term and then it's the thing that you're looking for is there. So it's like semantic organization based off of like the content of the word rather than organization based off of trees and files. So he started like having to teach file folder systems to his students because the tech they were using was still in file folders, but that like honestly meant like retraining their brains to think in this way. So if you're like looking for a person to adopt this, like you might just have to wait for them to die out before you can bring in the people that don't have that so deeply embedded in their cognitive architecture that they can do it. Like
100%. And I honestly, and now we're getting ready to fucking jump off the deep end because I honestly feel like that is the case when it comes to all of the low vibration bullshit that we experience on the day to day. When it comes to stuff like hate, racism, greed, all that fucking crap. I think that that's exactly what needs to happen. I think that that is something that used to serve people, that it used to be a survival skill to be that way, to be greedy, to be evil, to be fucking hateful, whatever. Like you survived longer if you were willing to do all this shit. And I don't think that that's the case anymore. But there are still so many people alive who are contributing to that energy and contributing to that existence that until they're dead, we're not going to see like any like big
right. But and
changes.
it's a smaller evolution, right? Where a piece of that disappears every time a generation goes by. And I often think to myself, well, imagine a time where people figure out how to become immortal, right? And they never die. That would be the ultimate curse because we would cease to evolve at that point. If you can't, because when you get to a certain point in your life, change is a lot harder and changing the way you think is a lot harder. So if you were stuck that way, how is the world ever going to get better, right? You have to die, your kids have to grow up and learn a certain way, then they have to die and their kids have to grow up and learn a certain way in order for the human species to evolve into anything any more than, like, imagine if the people who owned slaves never died, right? That kind of behavior would still be like, they'd still be fighting for that.
Unless they had new information presented to them. You know, like I personally feel like I've had multiple metamorphoses in my life, you know, and like I've had
it's harder.
Huge like when I was born, I wasn't thinking philosophically about shit, you know, like I went around, did stuff in my life, did some LSD, and then the next day everything is fucking different, you know, and I'm like completely looking at the world from a whole new angle and everything is different. I'm going to go back to the drawing board, you know, and I think we all have that potential, you know. I do think people have the potential within them to get new information and to change, but you know, to your point, it's going to take a lot. But it's
easier to soak up data into an empty sponge than it is to extract what's in there and pull in new things.
Right. And you know, but like, you know, to talk about Dr. Kissel's example there, he's talking about how people nowadays use a search function to grab the information rather than to navigate folders. And I do both. You know, like I was raised on folders, and now when I need information, I'll search it on my search bar at the bottom left, get to where I'm going quickly, and then from there, I'm able to navigate through folders, you know? So I'm not all folders or all search function. I'm going to take as much of all the information as I can, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, you know? There's a lot of people out there who are able to roll.
This is a tech design thing, right? So really what it is it's the nativeness of cloud, okay? So again, the cloud was, you know, what the hell, right? We're coming through where I have a hard drive, I have disk space, I have my files on my computer. You introduce smartphone, you introduce cloud connected services and apps. A lot of those apps, you know, they are storing data on your phone, don't get me wrong, but really it's when you're hitting that search bar, it's hitting the cloud, right? And so what you're taking advantage of now is the fact that you can do all this ridiculous, massive search capability lightning fast.
Yeah.
So it's that tech design that now is funneled its way into how I think about where my files are, where now they're not actually thinking about that, right? Like it's fundamentally, it's not, they're not asking, well, where that question didn't happen, right? Does that
where
make
is
sense?
this?
Like, I think
that's irrelevant. What do you mean, where is it? You just get it. Like,
Exactly. That's the thing. So,
Yeah.
we're coming at it. I'm like, okay, where is this thing being stored? Okay, this is being stored here. I got to go find this thing. Oh, in Teams, I can just blah, 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 do a quick search, right? Oh, is it in the general? Like, I can't tell. We're having meetings with Kissel. I'm like, oh, where did you put that thing? Is it in the general chat? Is it fucking search, right? Because it makes sense, right?
That's all I do now.
Yeah, exactly. So I just eventually search, but it's by that's one piece of software. And so I heard the same thing that he'd mentioned about the file format. I was very fascinated by that because I was like, wow, you're watching basically cloud native, right? That's a cloud native individual coming in and saying, what is this bullshit folder shit? What is this shit? I don't understand that. And you're like, in my head, I'm like, what? And I stop and go, all right, well, wait a second. How did we get here? Interesting. It's because
I think it's really cool too, the way that like we tend to think of technology. Well, if you're like me, you tend to think of technology like I come in, there's these tools that are available for me, and I reach for the tool and I do the thing that I want to do with it. And like what we're describing here is like the way that like technology feeds back into you. It literally changes the way that you understand and interact with the world in a way that like feels fundamental to you now once you've interacted with the technology. But prior to that, it's like completely foreign. And so like a lot of these changes, like we sometimes think of them as like one of the themes that I'm hearing come up in like as we're going through the news cycles is like, how do we communicate this to a population of people that are not already bought into this like VR technology? And this is a problem that VR has faced for a long, long time, the previous iterations, but it's I think not just a communication thing. It's not just like we need to make you see how the tool benefits you, but it's you got to get them in the headset first because there's that sort of change in your cognitive architecture that's going to start taking place, and that's something that you can't just be told about, right? You can't just tell the students this is how a file folder works if they've never, because they're not thinking in that space. Like,
yep.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of want to pivot a little bit here because I don't want to run out of time before we talk about some of the things that I feel like we really need to talk about. So you guys have been working on a VR project, right? In order to understand kind of how people make decisions when it comes to wild things like life and death situations. Right?
Okay, so let's start at the top then, right?
Yes.
Like tell us a little bit about the Virginia Philosophy Labs. And I'll start by saying, by the way, philosophy is like so fucking interesting. Obviously, we all love it here. And when I took philosophy classes, I took one philosophy class back in the day, and it was absolutely amazing. I loved it. Honestly, I thought I was going to become a philosophy professor. I did. I was like, this is it. This is what is worth doing. Having this conversation every day, getting people to think outside the box, getting them to question their reality. That is what I want to do. I'm a fucking modern day shaman. They call them philosophers. I'm going to go and do that shit. I want to have these conversations. And obviously, I've learned to find a way to kind of keep that thing going without becoming a philosophy teacher. But we have philosophy teachers here with us right now. So take us from, the top. Tell us a little bit about where you guys are, what you're doing, and the goals of the philosophy labs or virtual reality labs over at in Virginia.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm glad that you had such a good experience with philosophy. Not everybody has that. I sometimes open my classes with a possibly apocryphal saying from Steve Martin. He said, philosophy should teach you just enough to fuck you up for the rest of your life.
Nice.
And that's kind of the approach that I try and have. People sometimes get frustrated in my brand of philosophy that there are very few answers and they come out with more questions. But I think coming out with more questions to ask is a good place to be in, because that's how you're growing, when you realize all the problems and flaws with your way of thinking.
What is your definition of philosophy, by the way? If you had to say, what is philosophy?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, it's complicated. I like to go with philosophy is the attempt to gain knowledge in areas where we don't know how to gain knowledge.
I like
right?
that.
Oh.
So the thinking is like, if we've got a method that works and is giving us information, we build it into a science, we set the train running, and we start doing that very difficult work of, collecting the data, doing the research, formulating hypotheses, that stuff. But we sometimes come up against questions and we're like, we're not yet sure how our methods in science glom onto this thing. And so philosophy is going to be like a toolbox of, rules of rationality, distinction drawing, general trends and patterns of thinking that we say, let's throw this at it. And sometimes you shake it a little bit and a new science falls out and we're like, awesome, let's go do that science. But sometimes you go for thousands of years and you still haven't figured out the best way to keep gaining knowledge of that. And that's why philosophers keep disagreeing with each other for so long. But it's also why it's oftentimes the birth of a lot of cool ideas that end up, trickling into other areas.
Oh, and I like that you kind of have framed it as something that's like usable and like applicable and like, like can be valuable, because honestly, my personal experiences of philosophy have been like 99% recreational, and then like 1% the idea of like, wanting to like spread the gospel, so to speak, or like help people kind of understand that, hey, you can think of things this way or that way, or you realize people have been thinking for a very long time. Here's some of the best thoughts ever, like that I love that aspect, but I've never really thought about it being something that is like applicable or maybe even like needed as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very useful way of looking at the world, sort of the tools. And like I said, there's a lot of disagreements, and so I'm sure there are 15 philosophers in the chat right now saying this is all bullshit, that's not what philosophy is. I'll look forward to getting emails from them.
Nice.
But philosophy is weird because we can't be defined by our content. If you study biology, then you go into biology. If you study physics, you go into physics. Like, philosophy doesn't have content constraints like that. But then it also doesn't have method constraints because we do all sorts of different stuff. And so that leads to some interesting things, like when I talk about the stuff the Virginia Philosophy Reality Lab is doing, and people say, well, that's not philosophy. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. But, what we've been trying to do, I was motivated by a couple of different things. One being, meeting up with some cool folks like John and our third member, Christoph, who wasn't able to make it tonight. Saying, hey, we do, modeling and simulation and extended reality stuff. And I was like, that's really cool, because I've been thinking a lot about philosophical thought experiments recently, right? And so philosophical thought experiments are these like weird hypothetical scenarios that you think about in order to like analyze concepts and identify like contradictions and things like that. And some philosophy thought experiments have been getting traction in the news recently. So like one in particular you might have heard about if you've watched The Good Place or if you've learned anything about self-driving cars, is this problem called the trolley problem. And it's like a really simple idea of there's a train running down the tracks and its brakes don't work. There's 5 people up on the track ahead of you, and if you don't do anything, the trolley's going to hit all 5 of them, and they're all going to die, right? But you notice, like, right next to you, there's a little switch you could pull, and if you pull the switch, it would send the train off onto a side spur, but there's one person on that track. And so you have the choice. You could do nothing, let the 5 die, or you can pull the switch, kill the one to save the 5, right? Now, if you're like most people, I think the data shows like between like 80 and 90% of people, they say, I would pull the switch, killing the one to save the 5, right? And the thinking is like, reduce the amount of harm to people, save the most lives. It's simple math, right? Mm-hmm. But then you turn around and you ask people, okay, imagine that you're a surgeon, and if you perform a surgery, it's always successful. You got 5 people in your hospital, and they're all dying from some different organ failure, but they all have the same blood type. So if you could find someone to donate organs, you could save all 5 people. Person with the right blood type just so happens to walk into your hospital. He's perfectly healthy. You realize you could kill him, harvest his organs, distribute them to the 5 people, right? And then you ask, would you be willing to do this? And most people say, no, that would be terrible.
I like this.
And the thinking is like, wait a minute, you just said, although it would be sad, kill the one to save the 5 in the trolley. But in the surgeon case, you say, don't kill the one, that would be horribly wrong. And so then the philosophers ask, so what's the difference? Like, we're like, what's the difference that makes a difference is the question we like to ask. And then we can pursue lots of philosophical conversations about what we would do. But one of the difficulties of this is like, I'm asking you to imagine this hypothetical scenario, and having dealt with a bunch of undergraduates who are all wonderful people and excited to learn, they're also extremely brave. And you talk to them and they're all like, well, I'd throw myself in front of the train so I die and save all these people, Yeah, and I'm like, maybe you're a better person than I am, but like, I can barely like ask people not to speak so loudly at the supermarket. Like, the thought of like intervening in someone's life that much sounds so difficult to me. Like, I'll be like, hey, there's a fight going on at the end of the bar. Someone should stop them. Not gonna be me. That guy's big. Like,
well,
so the difficulty is, you want to imagine these hypothetical scenarios, and I was like, well, why ask students to imagine it when that's getting in the way of their ability to ask these philosophical questions? We could use VR to sort of start to build this thing and maybe tap into their moral decision making a little bit better than if we're just writing down on paper. And John was like, shit, you want to train to kill people? I'll give you a train to kill people. So he started working with me.
Well, I think this is brilliant, actually. This is brilliant because, what I'm thinking about is like anybody who's ever watched a slasher film, right? Like you're watching the slasher film and you're watching someone get chased by the killer and you're like, why don't they just lock the door? Why don't they just jump the gate? Like you're having all of these thoughts to yourself of like, why don't they do X, Y, or Z? Then they'd be in a better scenario. But you're not getting chased by a fucking killer, are you? It's certainly easy to sit here with a clear head and say, oh yeah, I would definitely just, pull that thing and boom, take care. Yeah, 1 versus 5, easy. But when push comes to shove, would you? You think you would, right? Like we think that we have, when we like think about ourselves, we think that we're awesome. Like you're not going to like imagine yourself as like some like selfish asshole who doesn't care about it. Like, no, like you like to think you're a good person. You like to think that you're smart, that you would make the right decision. So it's easy when someone presents a hypothetical like this, just in a conversation, you're like, yeah, this is easy. I can do the math, just like you said. But when push comes to shove and you have emotion and split-second decision-making and like present moment awareness all kind of adding and like becoming contributors to your decision-making, it might take something like a simulation that really immerses you to start to get some data that actually is a little bit more realistic rather than just taking everybody's word for it.
Well, yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned when push comes to shove, because the next version of the trolley problem that you have to do is that rather than pulling a switch, you have to push a person into the path of the train to kill the 1 to save the 5, right? Mm-hmm. And people are less willing to do it if it involves the direct use of force, right? Than they are if it involves pulling a switch.
But an indirect use of force, like the mousetrap or something. Like you pull this, but it hits that and like knocks into that, and that kills the guy. Well, hey, I'm absolved. It was the bowling ball that landed on him. It wasn't my hand,
Well, and then there's this like weird sort of question they have to start asking themselves. So where it's like, we've got all this data that suggests that people are more willing to pull a switch than they are to push a person into a track, right? There's also some data suggests that they're more willing to push skinny people than they are to push obese people, right?
Really?
And so we have
I'm safe.
So we have So they said if it's a skinny person with a big backpack or a very large person, they'll push the skinny person. And if you ask people why, they'll say stuff, like, well, he was probably going to die sooner anyways because he was overweight. Or he clearly doesn't have his life together, so he's less likely to have like kids or something like that than the skinny man. But like really what it comes down to is that people seem to think...
Oh, so they're more apt to push the fat guy, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
So they're saying that, obesity translates to some sort of moral failing. And that's kind of fucked up when we think about it. And so, although we know that this is what people are more likely to do, it also seems that like in a moment of cool reflection, we would say that's not the moral system we want to endorse, right? And so then we have to, to ask ourselves, what do we do when we find that people think that this is morally important, but we, as upon reflection, don't think it's morally important? Right?
Well, we've been we talked earlier about stuff that happens on a subliminal level, right? And like experiments like this could start to reveal things about the subliminal that maybe we're not always really able to be connected with. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm going to say that there might be something instinctual or subliminal about the idea of you preferring to keep somebody who has taken care of their body alive as opposed to someone who has not. I think that being unhealthy might be morally irresponsible, because if we are all one and we are all contributing members of humanity, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that way humanity is good. If you don't take care of yourself,
right? And then what happens if I tell you that person had a, maybe they had a gene issue or something, and they had a, some type of medical reasoning. It was out of their control.
And,
right?
and maybe
Now all of a sudden you're like,
maybe
"Oh,
so, but
shit,
culling of the fold, and maybe so survival of the fittest, right? Like that's obviously not something we want to perpetuate.
But like you said, if we all are one and we're here then it comes down to why are we here? But if we kind of push that out of the way, then I think we would. The unified us is here to experience all of the different parts of being human, including being irresponsible, including not having self-control and overindulging and some of the things like this, right? So just like a lot of things in philosophy, there isn't an easy answer.
Right. So. And that's what makes this shit so damn interesting, right?
Well, but notice what you were trying to do there is you're trying to say, like, look, here's an apparently morally irrelevant feature of a person, their weight, and then you're trying to explain that in terms of moral relevance, right? You say, like, here's something that we clearly understand is like morally relevant, and so trying to like connect the dots, but as we do more of these studies, it's becoming harder and harder to connect some of those dots, right? It's starting to look like, no, really, you just think that's gross, and that's why you're claiming it's morally wrong, right?
You just don't like
disgust
it.
Response.
Like we just
right?
we don't have you like why are we looking so deep at this? Like you just didn't like it.
yeah. Why do people think that incest is morally wrong? Yuck, right? And but then again, like that can explain why people judge it to be wrong, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we think it actually is wrong, right? So in philosophy, we distinguish between descriptive claims and normative claims. Descriptive claims describe the way the world is. So I can say, Kissel is the kind of guy that if you put him in VR, he'll push people onto tracks to kill them, right? It's describing the thing. But a normative claim is saying what Kissel should do, right? Kissel shouldn't push people in the way of oncoming trolleys because that would be wrong. It would be taking a life, or pick your favorite, right? And so part of what we're trying to struggle with here is, once we get a clear picture of descriptively what people think is acceptable, then we can turn around and say, do we want to continue to endorse that, or do we think we need to make a change? So, for example, if we're building self-driving cars and they're doing, these millions of calculations a second to calculate there's a sign there and there's a person there and they walked in front of me and then the car needs to swerve, but that could potentially endanger the life of the person in the car, now we might have a real-world trolley problem. And so if we say, we've done the research, that means that whichever's going to save the most lives, we should do that. If that means killing the person in the car, who's going to buy that car?
That's right.
Right.
Everybody says, yeah, I'd be willing to make the sacrifice until they got to buy that Bentley. Now, of course, the self-driving cars, people are very optimistic and they say, like, hey, this is a technical problem. We're going to start making the car so that no one's life has to be in danger. And I look forward to that future because I do think I'm a shit driver. And I think there are a lot of bad drivers out there, and self-driving cars might help that.
I do think that.
But as I was saying earlier, in the in-between, we can't wait for the data and then make our changes on the basis of lives lost.
Right.
We need to start trying to anticipate these problems. And our hope is that studying philosophical thought experiments through VR can help us address that in a slightly more ethical way. We don't actually have to kill people to find out what they'd be willing to do.
Right. So
we just have to, simulate killing them.
This is such good stuff. So let me ask then, if are there things, like if it's victimless, is it okay? That's the question, right? Because right now we're talking about a victimless experience. Like, oh, the simulation is something that we would not run in the real world because it would produce a victim. So we can run a simulation that would produce no victim that will help us get some kind of data. And the question is are there experiences that morally, even though there is no victim, should not exist? Simulations that should not be run? And if so, where do you draw the line?
This is an amazing question, Alex.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
I'm gonna throw one thing in there. So there's an interesting researcher. You guys have probably seen him, Jeremy Bailenson. What he's looking at is longitudinal, right? He's looking at longitudinal stuff, and he's looking at like, can we, make you, if we put you in VR in an experience, and if you feel the change, right? It's so immersive, you've maybe changed a little bit. What's the difference? If I'll give you a YouTube video. All right, I'll show you some other content. I'll change the medium up a little bit. How do you feel about it tomorrow? How do you feel about it next year? How do you feel about 5 years, right? 10 years? And what they're starting to show is that when you're in a more immersive environment, in theory, we have a higher way of kind of impacting you, right? So he's really talking about from the positive perspective, right? Mm-hmm. But what's very interesting, and I find it very interesting, is their group also says, look, if you can do it in a positive way, it means you can also do it in a negative way, right? And so there's always been this kind of trope about video game and violence, right? And especially in the United States, right? Oh, well, all these violent video games in the 90s is causing why, people are shooting people and all this back and forth jerk. And there's been a lot of researchers that says, actually, really, no, that's not really the case. However, when you start to get in more immersive experiences, you are kind of hijacking the senses, right? And so you get into this thing of like, what is like where there are things you really should start to think about from a standpoint of like, is this the right, big air quotes, like game, or is this the right thing? Like, I'm going to put you in an experience that mixed reality, and I'm going to scare the living shit out of you in your own home. Is that gonna screw you up tomorrow? Like, you can have little mini PSD event. You know what I mean? Like post-traumatic stress, because all the same biomarkers are there, right? And so I would leave it at that, and then let you hit that
That's a good question, really quick, because we did just have an announcement that Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is coming to virtual reality, right? So this is just a perfect time to just throw that out there, right? That this happened today, because we are going to be going into virtual worlds in VR and be able to do anything to anybody, from running people over to shooting, cold-blooded murder, to prostitution, to all of these different things in a very immersive environment. So this is a very, very interesting question, and I would be very interested to see the data on this. Will this type of thing, as it becomes more and more real, would it have an effect on the way someone would do things in real life?
Dr. Kissel.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, if you might see from some of my shelves, one of the ways that I got into virtual reality was through video games. I was doing philosophy in video games and writing papers and doing research on this very question of, when there's no obvious victim, might we still be concerned about the morality of actions that take place virtually? And I think one place to push back that John is bringing up is that we should keep in mind that a victim does not just necessarily mean the object of the violence, right? So there's a victim in the sense, like, if on the trolley problem I push the person. There's a victim in Grand Theft Auto in the sense that if I beat the virtual person. But there might also be harmful effects on the user, right? And what gets a little bit uncomfortable when we're thinking about virtual reality is that we've got a long history of not being okay, particularly in the research sector, with potential harm to the people we're doing research on, right? So if you're familiar with the old Milgram experiment, they make fun of it at the beginning of Ghostbusters, when they're shocking people in the scenes of Ghostbusters. But in the Milgram experiment, they're like, look, press this button, you're going to shock somebody in the other room, right? And as they're pressing the buttons, they can hear these people screaming in painful agony. And then one time they press it and they scream, and then the screams cut short, and the dude's like, oh crap, did I just kill a person over there, right? And it's often cited as an explanation for why the Nazis did their terrible things. They were just following the orders. So when you've got someone next to you saying, it's okay, just press it and cause massive pain to that person, you'll do it, right? But then this is a study that could never be run today, because people are coming out of the study in tears thinking they've just killed somebody over there, right? Mm-hmm. And you can tell them, don't worry, it was all fake, you never killed somebody. But they just learned something about themselves. In that moment when they thought there was another person over there that they were shocking, they are capable of killing a person on the orders of another person. And that is something that they now have to grapple with. And the weird thing about these virtual reality studies that we're trying to do is we're running them on the assumption that we're getting better data about moral decision making. If we're doing our job right, then this is tracking what they do better than just asking them to face. But that also means it's going to be harder for them to lie to themselves about it. They can't say, oh, it was because I was in a virtual setting. In that moment, they thought it was real. And that's serious potential damage to them. And so independent of further questions about, if it's going to turn them into, violent murderers or something, we might have to deal with this very question about,
Oh, yeah. and we're not even hitting on like so, you know, our experience is really more or less trained at kind of we call the classic trolley problem, right?
Mhm.
And you know, if you look at like AAA games and what they've been able to do from an emotional story arc and narratives, right? We can all relate to any game that's impacted us in such a way that we still think about it today, just like any good story. And there's an impact there, you know. But we still can kind of manage that. But with VR, you start to get a little lower. You're getting lower in the quote lizard brain, right? And there's some interesting stuff happening where this project really opened me up to be like, I don't know where, like, in our thing again, like, I'm not trying to, you know, go try our app, right? Like, there's a ton of things I'd do differently, but we talked about this a lot because, man, like, just like having, if we put more information on the people, right? We know that impacts the study. Right. So we don't want to do that because we can't then go back and say, okay, we're doing the classical problem. Now let's compare and contrast. We actually wouldn't have a way to do that statistically and data wise. It would be junk. Right. But that's kind of where I'm really curious there, because I feel like if we gave you a backstory on some of these people, right, and you all of a sudden something connected, you connected with this train worker, I bet you're less likely to push that guy. Right.
I bet you're right.
But if I just told you that's just some random dude, some NPC, you know nothing about it, like, fucking I'd push. But if there's 20 minutes of story about his life and his family and his kids and he's working 5 jobs and all of a sudden now you're going to shove this, you hesitate and you don't do it. And what I'm saying is, like, I think that's a really interesting study. But my concern is exactly what Dr. Kissel said. I just push this guy and I go, I know it was not real, but man, like, I'm not sleeping right now. Like, I'm really thinking about it. You know, you get this weird, you get this really weird place.
But I mean,
and people are, again, we talked earlier, I don't think they're ready, man. I don't think people are ready.
But should we?
Meta's ready.
Do we protect people from that? Do we protect people from the ugliness that resides within them? You know, or is this an inevitability of us growing as people and connecting with the technology? Right? Like, no one wants to have to stay up at night, but like at the end of the day, like that's within you. So, period. Deal with it.
I'll tell you what. I had an experience, and I think I've talked about this before, and it does go a little bit with some of the news. So this is perfect, right? Where Blade and Sorcery was announced for the Quest today. Right.
I love how you're weaving this in. This is
like
really
that?
good.
But for real, I had an experience playing Blade and Sorcery on the PC, and it felt very real. I had the graphics turned up. I was in my index, and this was after they did that they did the patch where you could like grab a person and take a knife and slit their throat. Right. So it was very, very intense. I grabbed this person. I wanted to try it. I wanted to see how it worked out. And I looked this NPC in the eyes and I slit their throat. And afterwards, when I dropped the body, I literally had to take my headset off, and I had intense emotional feelings from this. Like, it affected me in a way that I've never, ever been affected by a video game ever before. Right. So I totally understand this, because I have been in that situation where, like, I feel like my body and my brain told me I just did something very wrong. And it made me start to wonder, am I capable of doing something like this? Right. I mean, it's just a crazy thing.
I've put a lot of people, I've been in a pretty cool job where I can honestly say I've probably put over a couple thousand people in VR for their first time.
Nice.
Right.
Wow,
I was right on the edge. And as a student, I was able to really have a lot of exposure. We had access to hardware, but a lot of people didn't even know what the heck it was. And most people, it was always this beautiful, like, they try to reach out and grab. That's like the first interaction. A lot of people talk about that. I had one person, a very, very simple experience, they kind of threw the headset off, and they kind of went into a small, I won't say full panic attack, but had a small anxiety flare up. And I was not prepared for that, right? And I knew the person, so I was actually friends with the person. So I became a friend, talked with the person, and they had a very solid 5 minutes of disconnect. They, for 5 minutes, had this switch in their brain, and it might sound like I'm making up crap, but for 5 minutes, this person was convinced they might not be real.
No, that makes sense.
That scared the shit out of me. Because I'd read about this, different experiences, forget VR, just different, human experiences and, traumatic events and all this stuff. And you start to see that, hey, as we get closer to, reality, we're going to have to grapple with that.
Yeah.
And is that
And
a good thing that happened to that person? Maybe they never had the opportunity to think about something like that before and question their own existence.
Well,
And now they just got socked in the face with this.
I don't want to cut you off here, but this is why we are talking about relative morality, because you said, is this a good thing? Like a good thing, people have been murdering each other forever. It's a human thing. That is something that we have always done. And I don't know, I have a hard time seeing it going away. I think you're okay, Skiva. I think you are. And I think that the person who went through this 5-minute ordeal, I think they're okay too. I think they survived, and maybe it was intense. Maybe you might even want to call it traumatic, but at the end of the day, they didn't die. They're okay, and they're going to grow as a person as a result of their experiences. We can't prevent people from having uncomfortable experiences. That's not something that we should be concerned with. I think discomfort and pain and all that shit helps people grow. So I think if you learn something about yourself by doing something like that, good for you. You just grew. And maybe you're not in your nice little bubble, comfy little snuggly blanket, but we need people to grow, and it requires some discomfort every now and then to do that.
Yep.
VR, by and large, VR games, by and large, I'm going to say 80% of them are murder simulators. By and large, most of what we do in VR is kill people, either with a gun or a sword or it's a zombie or it's a humanoid of some kind. But whatever, you're cutting off heads, you're shooting things, you're exploding stuff. That is what we do by and large. And right now, as a society, we say murder is the worst thing you can do. It's the last thing on the list. It's the highest form of punishment is when you kill someone. But this is what I want to bring it back now to. Are there things that don't have a right to exist when murder simulation is the most popular fucking thing that we do in VR? So this is something that is the worst thing ever, and there's some people who think of stuff that would argue is worse. And, we mentioned before the show, pedophilia. Right? Some people would say pedophilia is worse than murder or whatever.
Rape.
Oh yeah, or rape.
Right? What if you had a rape simulator?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I want to know. It's if we're allowed to share murder simulators with each other and spread them all over the place, do these other experiences, people doing sexual deviations or something like that, shouldn't these also have the chance to exist? And I think about stuff like pedophilia, and obviously most people think it is the worst fucking thing in the universe. But who doesn't? Pedophiles. They are into it, and I don't think they want to be.
It's not clear to me, as a person raised Catholic, it's possible to do something and hate yourself for it as well. So it's not obvious to me that pedophiles don't necessarily think that what they're doing is wrong.
Fair enough. But there's an urge there.
Right?
There's an urge there that they cannot turn off, obviously. It's something that is overpowering because they know it's wrong, but they can't stop their behavior anyway. And what if there were immersive experiences that allowed people with this fucking fucked up perspective to scratch their itch and have a victimless experience?
This
study
in philosophy...
We're breaking up.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm gonna just cut this part out of the thing because we're all frozen up here. Hold on.
I think.
Okay. Are we back? Okay. We're back. Go ahead.
So I knew you were about to say something, Dr. Kissel. I do think I think somebody's been looking at VR with pedophilia and convicted felons, but I'm not 100% sure. It might have been something I was just reading about, or I saw a small conference thing about, and it got a lot of flack. I could be wrong, so I'm going to look into that. So I don't want to make a false claim. So anyways.
So I'm not certain about that. I know that the Netherlands has has developed programs with the goal of identifying and helping to rehabilitate pedophiles rather than imprisoning them. So identifying them ahead of time and then using various things to help address those needs. But actually, Alex, it's in philosophy, we call this the gamer's dilemma, right? This idea that, if you look at Steam and you'll see, the Steam game shop, you'll see games and games and games of murder and murder and murder, and it's just an accepted aspect of our culture. And then you see, here's this, obscure indie Japanese import rape game, and people say this is disgusting, cut it out of there. Yeah. And the worry is that the arguments you can give that makes enjoying Grand Theft Auto innocent fun can also be applied to pedophilia in video games, virtual pedophilia. And so the thinking is like something's got to go. You either have to change your attitude about violence in virtual settings, or you got to change your attitude about pedophilia in virtual settings, right? Or, again, this term's going to come up, you need to find the difference that makes a difference, such that, in murder's case, virtual murder, it's not wrong, but in virtual pedophilia's case, it is wrong. But I think most of these arguments are predicated on the idea that, like, what we care about for morality, the only thing is further harm down the line. Like, we've already set up the conversation in the context of, like, identify the victim, and if there's no victim, nothing wrong. And, I mean, there are plenty of philosophical theories that think something can be wrong even without a victim. But I want to say just, like, some of us are already committed to the idea that, like, there can sometimes be things that, at the very least, we think need to be questioned for a moment, even if it's not clear that it involves a direct causal harm to somebody else, right?
Well, a lot of this is all conditioning, though, like we're conditioned by our media and all of this shit to know and see people getting murdered on a regular basis. So therefore, to us, it's not a big deal, and I think to your point about like the religious community, I think that that's why pedophiles are so fucking prevalent in the religious community, is because they set the precedent for that kind of relationship so early on in those people's lives that it seems like a normal thing, and they don't know that they're being taken advantage of until it's already fucked them up and it's way too far down the line, So I feel like a lot of this is just purely condition based, and if we were conditioned to think one thing is okay and another thing is wrong, then we absolutely would.
But this comes back to that distinction I was trying to draw earlier about the difference between a descriptive claim and a normative claim. I can totally agree with you, Alice, that, like, yes, I can explain causally why people have the views that they have, because they were subject to certain upbringings, they had certain experiences at pivotal points in their life, and say that that describes and explains what they're doing, right? And yet I can ask myself as well, do we want to continue to allow it and endorse it? Should it be accepted, right? And so, and in fact, we can use these things in concert. When I realize, hey, when you're subject to these kinds of experiences, you're more likely to be a pedophile, and when you're not subject to these experiences, you're less likely, then it looks like we should try and help people avoid the situations where they become pedophiles.
Right.
If we decide that pedophilia is wrong, right? And so that's where, what I want to think a little bit more about is, like, I mean, because this is really what ethics comes down to. We oftentimes think about it as like right or wrong in terms of like harming people or not. But when we're talking about morality, what we're really talking about is human flourishing. Like, what's the path I want to be on to become the best human that I can become? And generally, that means not harming other people in unfair or bad ways, right? But it can also require development of myself, engaging in certain behaviors as helping me to be the best that I can be. And that's then when I come back to, virtual reality, because it seems to me like it can provide us lots of opportunities to be the best I can be, right? It can teach me things. It can give me new experiences that I otherwise wouldn't have. But as John pointed out, that also means it's going to have the flip side. It's going to give me opportunities to be the worst version of me I could be. And so even if no one is going to be harmed by my pedophile play, if it's playing on a desire in me that I don't want, that I don't think is conducive to my flourishing, I'm going to be concerned about that, right? And the same attitude towards violence in virtual reality as well.
Well,
right?
yeah, and that's what I want to bring up. It's like I don't have any of those thoughts when I'm killing people in Blade and Sorcery. Like, I'm not thinking about whether or not these behaviors are conducive to my character and if I'm becoming a better or worse person as a result of what I'm doing. I'm just bored and I put the headset on and I did something.
Right. But then this is like a classic move that we make. We say, like, look, this is the virtual world, the not real world, the fake world, where I take on my fake persona and do whatever my fake persona would do, right? And we think that that's somehow importantly different from, like, the real me, the true self, right? The one that I use when I'm engaging in interactions every day, right? But, I mean, one of the things that I think we're learning is that this idea of a true, stable self that's the core of you, that's the real one, is a bit of a myth, right? I'll talk to you all differently as I would talk to my parents, differently from how I talk to my students, right? When I, thinking about my philosophical pedigree, I engage in certain kinds of behavior. When I'm at the bar and trying not to be a pedant who's annoying to talk to, I'll play those down. I'm constantly shifting what my values are, what's important to me. And I think when I put on the virtual reality headset, I'm doing the exact same thing, right? I'm taking on a different persona, but why should the fact that this one is based in, electrical impulses in a visor over my head rather than carbon atoms and, you know, things like that smashing into each other change whether the persona I'm adopting is part of me. I just don't see that in a robust way.
Well, and you know, I gotta be honest, like when I think about the way I live and the way I experience reality, I oftentimes take this very like deterministic perspective where like I don't think it would have ever gone any other way. Like based on the life that I have, I mean, I know you guys know what determinism is, but based on all of the things that have happened to me in my life, if put into the same circumstances with the same outside contributing factors, I will have always made the same decision because I'm constantly making decisions based off of my experience. So I kind of feel personally like I am almost like powerless to a lot of what's happening. And like, it's like the dominoes have already gone and it's just going, and it's either going to be one way or the other, you know, like I'm not sure that we as individuals can do a whole lot to like personally influence it, you know, or like change it, because anytime you think you're changing it, you're just making a decision based off of new information that you've gotten. So I almost feel like this is all like, it's already done, you know, and we're just like kind of wait and see.
Yeah, but it's your direct choice over whether you pursue new information to then influence yourself to be able to make better decisions.
Well, and I would say it's not, but I don't think there's a difference to the experience of it. Like the experience is the same. Like we're still going to sit here and like be making decisions the whole time. But at the end of the day, like I do feel like there is something very perpetual and inevitable about a lot of what we're talking about and the way that this is all going to unfold.
But yeah, I mean, even if we're in a straight, sorry, John, go ahead.
Well, I was to say, you know, there's some full circle stuff we could bring in too, right? So, you know, I think about this a lot, right? So video games are always limited, right? Yeah, you have a limit. You can't do certain things, right? You have actions, you have inputs. Right? I can pick up stuff, I can throw stuff, right? Well, as you get more into these immersive games, it's really like you said, they're more simulators, right? So, hey, I've got a screwdriver and there's a screw over there. I want to go unscrew it, right? Okay, so if we're really going down the road of the metaverse, meta, and I have my virtual objects and I can bring them and carry them just like my book bag and my laptop, can Skiva, can you come steal my virtual laptop? But I thought this was supposed to be like, you know, recreation and mixed environment. Like, okay, so what does digital theft look like? I mean, is there such a thing in this space, and does it have the same meaning? Now, legally, what happens? Are you going to serve time for stealing my $2,500 NFT digital good? The same as if you stole my $2,500 real physical good? I don't know. I guess it's on where you are, right? Like, so you get these weird kind of like full circle things. So I think a lot about that, about even this conversation. Like, so yeah, there's no outcome because, hey, it's just me. I'm just going to put the headset on and relax and just go, you know, have fun and not think and, you know, murder a bunch of whatever zombies. It's cool. But, you know, what if there's somebody else's zombies? I don't know. Like, it's weird, right? Like, what, like, that's still cool. I mean, it's a game, right? Just, you know, we could just reset. It fucking doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, I mean, if our ethical views are based off of harm to others, there's difficult questions we're going to ask about when somebody is harmed in a virtual setting, right? But I think also I keep coming back to this idea that we think that, you know, when I'm in the virtual setting, it's somehow different in a robust way from the real world, such that the values we would normally apply no longer hold. And I'm becoming increasingly skeptical that that's a meaningful distinction at this point, right? Like,
I appreciate that, but I don't. I think I will represent the other school of thought, you know, and I want to move the word from victim to consequence, okay? Because like if I'm in Half-Life Alyx, I can pick up a bottle and throw it across the room just because, you know, and then I just move on and that's it, and I don't have to go and clean that shit up. You know, like there's a consequence to my actions in this reality that we're all sharing. But in VR, maybe there's still a consequence, but it's far less severe, you know, and certainly one that I'm willing to accept.
So what happens if all of a sudden, though, you do it in the real life?
I pay for it. And this is what I'm talking about with determinism, because if I do it in real life, if I'm like, I want to prove that I can do anything, I have free will, and I'm going to take this fucking phone and I'm going to throw it across the room. What happens? My phone gets cracked. Skiva looks at me like I have 3 fucking heads. He doesn't want to invite me over next time. I pay for that. And now I take that knowledge and I think about what happens when I throw my phone across the fucking room, and I don't do it anymore, you know, but in VR.
Yeah, and that's because you have this previous physical experience, right? What if they're flipped? What if they're flipped? What if you're spending more time in this digital world? And so the rules that you are, that becomes your reality. So in the virtual world, I can do whatever I want. I can toss bottles, and then all of a sudden you're out and you're like, fuck this place.
You learn at the same
now you're like, you go to jail, right? You're like, what? But this is what I do. This is who I am. This is my reality.
Because you either do it in the real life first and then realize, oh, when I go into the virtual space, those consequences no longer exist, or you do it consequence free in the virtual world until you have the balls to pick the thing up and throw it, and you learn very quickly right then and there what sucks about throwing your thing in the room. And from that point on, now that you have that real life experience, you'll know, you know? So I think you learn at the same speed.
What if I challenge your starting premise that what's required for right and wrong depends only on consequences? Right? Why should I accept that? Wait, why should I think that our understanding of right and wrong only depends on consequences? So think about it this way, right? I do some horrible thing thinking that it's the real world, but it's actually a virtual world. And we pull you out, and I say, ha ha ha, it was a prank. You didn't know it. You were in a virtual world that whole time. But now I've learned something new about you, right? You're an asshole who's willing to do that horrible thing when you think it's the real world. And so I'm going to say, you've done the wrong thing, even though there was no negative consequence, right? And so, I mean, part of me starts to think like, we can differentiate between judgments of actions, whether they're right or wrong, and we can and judgments of people, whether they're good or bad, right? And so maybe a way of putting this is perhaps there aren't wrong actions in virtual reality because there's no negative consequences in the same way in the real world. But there's definitely still going to be bad people in virtual reality.
Well,
and virtual reality is going to help us know who those people are.
Let's take it a step further.
And there's going to be good people too.
What if there's no right or wrong, period? And there just are things that have certain outcomes. And we make our decisions based on what those outcomes are. Now, let's not even call it consequence. Let's just call it outcome. Like you do something, it has an outcome. And you make your further decisions based on what that outcome was. When I go into VR and I'm playing Half-Life Alyx and I throw a glass bottle, what's the outcome? It shatters on the wall. It made a cool sound. That's it. I move on. I go into the real world. I pick up a bottle. What's the outcome? It smashes against the wall, makes a huge fucking mess, breaks me with some broken glass, cuts my finger. You know, like that kind of stuff is what's going to help shape my decision making, regardless of what's right or wrong.
What happens if I'm able to pay Meta? I'm a company. I'm gonna, hey Meta, I'm gonna give you some money. Give me the profile of this individual and their VR experiences. And I'm gonna make my decision factor on whether I'm gonna hire that individual.
That's gonna suck.
Interesting.
So you might still, but like you said, like it's still, now we're still dealing with a consequence. But like, hey, that's a very real way of maybe getting some inside information on like what this person may or may be willing to like do. So and we would say, oh yeah, but it's virtual. Like they were just blowing off steam, right? Well, boys being boys, right?
Well, so
you get this weird, like dilemma of like,
who has the right there? Do I have the right to be private about how much of an asshole I am, or do you have the right to know fully how much of an asshole?
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Like the self I show to me, I don't show to anybody else, right? The self I show to the public, the self I show, right? Like what Kissel was saying, I'm going to be different in the bar. I'm going to be different here,
right?
But like, I don't actually have that right in this space,
and maybe
right? And that's kind of what we're.
Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't. Like the people who fight the hardest against stuff like privacy and location and all that shit are the ones that have the most to hide.
I do disagree with that 1,000 billion %.
I know you do, but
I cringe too.
Yeah.
but there is. You can't tell me there's not something to this, because there really is. Like, trust me, there's something to that. I know why you don't like it. The ones who have been
hurt the most by the system are the ones who are most concerned about their privacy.
Yes,
that does not necessarily correlate
to
having something to hide.
Right.
Fair enough. You know, and obviously, you know, it sucks but I just want it. However I have to say it. Okay, I want it to be known that there's people who are doing shit that they fucking shouldn't, and they're bigger assholes than they let on, and they don't want to be exposed, right? Like there are people who will be exposed by this kind of thing going forward, who are doing way more harm than we know about. And I personally have no problem with exposing these kinds of people. If you are an asshole, maybe everyone deserves to know it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
it's dangerous.
It's a very interesting point.
Yeah, it is an interesting point. although I disagree with it completely.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're a fucking asshole.
Maybe I am.
Yeah, maybe we should get the truth out of you.
Just think, like I'm able to see. Oh, I'm able to get a quick snapshot, right, from some company off of your habits in gaming or what you think, and this is the stuff that's being built behind the scenes, right? And so you got to throw Microsoft in there too, right? So like these big studios that are kind of these platforms, if Meta is a platform and they want to be open and everybody gets to come man, the insight they're gonna know about people and like where does that go? Where's the transparency with that? Can I get a snapshot of what you think about me? Because that's how the rest of the world might judge me.
Yeah, a little bit further, and the information will be very profound. But like right now, you already have people getting fired over shit that they post on Facebook or old photos that come like they're gonna look at your social
Private
media
group chats.
So
right?
that's already there. You know what I mean? Like this is already in action.
And I think it's just gonna escalate. Like you're gonna find people that are like, we had to get rid of that guy. Wow, he was killing off too many of these NPCs, and we were really worried he was gonna have a moment where he's gonna try to come in and take us out.
But you don't think we would have like accurate representations of what that data means? Like we wouldn't be able to say, okay, this doesn't necessarily translate to X, Y, or Z.
No, I think that's really where all of it is, right? Like it doesn't. This gets into the whole like Minority Report thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, we know you were going to do it, but I didn't do it. But we know. What? You know what I mean? Like
that's such a good movie. God, fucking Minority Report is a great movie.
I have to throw it there. It's a great trope to throw in for VR stuff. Everybody else uses it. Why not?
It's so good. And it really is applicable, especially as, we talk about how these companies will learn us better than we know ourselves. They have all the subliminal information and they'll know shit. They'll know shit you don't.
I think Facebook touched on that a little bit today about how they're melting the real world and the virtual world together with augmented reality. And should they be the ones collecting the data of the things that you're also doing in the real world? And then, how like right now in Horizons, it takes a buffering of a I can't remember how long it is. Let's just say 15 minutes, right? And then when someone gets reported, then the last 15 minutes of your interactions get sent back to Facebook, and then they deal with your account accordingly, right? But that is also going to very soon, within the next decade or so, obtain, that's going to be relevant to the real world as well. The devices, the augmented reality devices and the things you're going to be wearing could also be recording, and then if something happens, it could send back.
And they'll be less separate. Right now, VR is so separate, but in the future, it's all going to start melting together.
Right.
Yeah, and then look, throw it even further, right? I treat my digital assistant like shit sometimes, right? I just throw a bunch of derogatory terms out there because it's whatever. It's my, I can't say the name because she'll come to life in here. I already referenced, female pronoun, right? So what happens if you've got enough data on me and I'm going to be away, I'm at work, but hey, you can interact with the NPC of me, and you know it. Let's say you're not talking to the real John. Oh, fuck you, John. You piece of shit. Fuck you. Right? Like I just know it. Like that's like there's some weird dark humor there, but like that's like, so what does that mean? Like, hey, don't verbally abuse my digital twin of me. Come on, that's not right.
But they do it because
you wouldn't say that to my face. Why would you say it to my digital twin's face?
Because it's victimless. That's why. And it's the same reason why people did it when what was that shit on AOL called? It was like aimbot or I don't know. There's some
aimbot, yeah.
Yeah, wasn't that? There was some fucking bot on AOL that you could. It was like an AI and it had like a bunch of predetermined responses. And what's the first thing everyone does? They just start saying the most hilarious and horrific shit to it because it's funny to see its responses and like, like, okay, did they plan for this? Did they plan for that? And like, you're testing it. You're like pushing the buttons. It's like the kid who like keeps punching his dad in the face, even though dad could kill him in a second, he's pushing it. He's pushing the limits. He wants to see how far he can go. And I think that's what we see here.
Yeah, and I think it's almost time to go because Discord is really giving us the hints by freezing the video so often here, and I can't keep up with trying to get it back.
Right, and we are definitely we're past 2 hours
way
now.
Past the time here.
But this has been such a great and thought-provoking conversation, and kind of to Dr. Kissel's point earlier, like philosophy at the end of the day is almost maddening because like you have this great, rich conversation full of awesome perspectives. And at the end of it, you just have more questions, more stuff that's unanswered, and almost feel like you have less of a grasp over the whole thing. But there's a reason to it. And there's something valuable that comes out of having these conversations. So I'm really, really stoked that we had the chance to do this with you guys today.
It was a wonderful time. I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, blast, guys.
Yeah, maybe
Can
each
I just
of you
throw
can.
out that it's really weird that I've been called Dr. Kissel this whole time, because even my students don't call me that. I normally just go by Kissel or Andrew. It's been very odd to me this whole time. I don't know where that came from.
Well,
One of us started it.
Yeah, John started it, and we want to give the respect where it's due, and at the end of the day,
Yes.
we don't have a lot of philosophy doctors in the VR space to like fucking spread some gospel and truth up in here. So we're going to take advantage of the opportunity to make it as official as we can. Maybe each of you can kind of just give us some closing thoughts before we get ready to Kissel. You want to start?
Oh, Jesus. Closing thoughts. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for talking to me and John about this. I'm hoping that we'll get to continue conversations in the future, whether it's here or one-on-one afterwards, about privacy and the creation of self in virtual spaces. Because sort of the one thought that I had at the end that I didn't get to throw in was this idea about controlling the flow of information. To me, is a way that I create my own identity, right? As I was saying earlier, I talk to my parents differently than I talk to you guys, than I talk to my students, and that control of your vision of me, all taken together, is my identity. And when you take that power to control access to information about me, you're actually taking control of my identity, not just information about my identity, because that is what I am. And so in that sense, I think virtual reality has a lot of really cool opportunities to learn more about the way I create my own identity. And that can be a very good thing, and that could be a very bad thing. And I'm okay with sticking with those sort of normative terms. We can fight later about what would be good or bad, right or wrong for us. But
I think we will. I
think it's really exciting. So thank you for letting me talk about that stuff with you.
Absolutely.
No, this has been fantastic. Just again, thank you all for having us on, and to kind of go and support what Dr. Kissel was saying. I like to now use this concept of like, why own the real world when the virtual world is way cheaper, right? Why own the real me when we can just rip me, right, and own the virtual me, right? And that's what you're watching, and it's going to continue to happen. I don't want to end on a doom and gloom note. So that being said, I hope these types of like conversations keep going, and I know they'll keep going. And I hope there is a lot more transparency with some of these services. There are, I think, models forward that let us have that control to some extent. And I think there's ways in which we are okay with giving away some of that privacy, as long as we know, right? I think it's just really about knowing and giving the controls back to the individual to some extent, right? Like, should I be able to erase myself online if I want to, right? And you see this with Google search and things like that. So I think it's just going to be an evolution of that and a continuation of that. And I think we'll eventually get it. I do. I have good hope there, but it's going to be interesting times in the middle. That's for sure.
We're going to be here for it.
Will, if someone wants to participate in this virtual reality train study, are they still able to do so?
Yes, they can. I think the easiest place to go is either our side quest page, where we've got our quest version there, and our GitHub. We just added our PC build for Oculus Rift, Rift S, and tethered quests.
And we'll have a really cool open source version of that by the end of the year. So for people that just want to go take it and go make their own and play around with it, that should be done by the end of the year.
Nice.
If you have ideas about how you want to kill people with trains, we're going to help you do it. So.
Amazing. I have the links in the description below. So if you guys do want to go and participate in this study, it's really cool. I did it. I'm not going to tell you what I chose, but I want to see what you guys choose. So go ahead and check it out.
John Shull, Dr. Andrew Kissel from the Virginia Philosophy Reality Lab.
Thank you.
We are going to be following you guys. You've got a great start right now. Keep the foot on the pedal. Please, let's continue to do this. We know that you'll come and join us on the show again in the future to tell us more about the research you're doing. And who knows, maybe by then we'll have something conclusive that we can use to kind of launch us into this next phase, right?
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll hopefully have that for you. Thanks so much again, guys.
Thanks,
Virginia
guys.
Philosophy
Awesome, guys.
Reality Lab, thank you so much. And everyone say goodbye to them as we eject them from the Between Reality ship. And just
Bye-bye.
like that, they're gone and not to be seen again until we call upon them in the future.
That was awesome. This is one of those conversations that I get so sad that we have a time limit. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like this would have been a great 4 or 5 hour conversation just selfishly for myself because I'm enjoying it so
Yeah.
much. And it's really too bad that sometimes we have to cut these things.
Well, you know, we
Little
let it
short.
go longer than we normally do, and I'm fine with that because these are the conversations that this fucking podcast was literally created to have. Like, this is what we are talking about, people. Yeah, sure, video games. Yeah, sure, you know, hardware, whatever, but no, self, like morality, ethics, like that is really what we need to talk about as we enter this space because this shit is profound and you all know it. So let's stop jerking off here and get to some serious shit because it's not going to be long before we don't have as much input and pull as we currently do. This is a small and intimate community, and right now our voices are being heard regardless of whether or not we are getting the recognition. They are being heard, and we are it's our responsibility to make sure that we do everything we can to keep this a safe space because shit's going to get super crazy. What's going on next week, Skiva?
Next week, we have our good friend VR with Jasmine, and she's going to be coming on and kind of sharing some of her experiences with all of this stuff. She also works in the technology field. But she's just a great person. She's a content creator. She's a YouTuber and a Twitch streamer and a Beat Saber player competitively. And
in the past,
she's just awesome.
like 6 months or so, has really like done a lot to kind of introduce herself to the VR community and make her voice heard and participate in everything that everyone's been doing. I see her in live chats of other streams all the time. I see her on Twitter all the time. And now she's going to be on Between Realities. And we are definitely excited to have Jasmine, VR with Jasmine, join us next week.
Cool.
On Friday, right? Live?
Heck yeah.
Everything's good to go?
Yep. Oh, and also go down into the description because next weekend, we will have a show before this, but next weekend there's going to be a Contractors tournament using the Cybershoes that's open to the public. So you can go down there, click on the link, join in, and you can win some really cool NFTs. And the first place being a digital Skiva NFT, which is really weird to say. It's kind of
Tell
funny.
us more about that next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like and subscribe. Go on our fucking Discord and come hang out with us. We will see you guys next week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a great one. See you later. Bye-bye.